Qualified, professional, and compassionate doctors talking real solutions to real health problems.
On the DocTalk show today, our good doctors discuss hydrocephalus and the various forms in which it presents.
Did you know that within the brain are some structures that produce a liquid, a colorless liquid called cerebrospinal fluid, or abbreviated as CSF? This liquid is under continuous production within the brain and circulates within the brain, outside the brain, down to the spinal cord within the back. However, some medical conditions occur when either this fluid, this CSF or liquid, is produced in excessive quantities or is not drained fast enough, or for some reason the channels get blocked. This condition is known as hydrocephalus and can present with serious neurological disorders such as confusion or development problems in children. With me in studios are doctors Dr. Mulondo and Dr. Matagala, who are from Cure Hospital in Mbale, to help us understand this condition called hydrocephalus, a condition which would basically term as excessive water in the head. So I'll start with Dr. Ronnie. You're both welcome to the show, by the way. And you're watching the DocTalk show. My name is Dr. Darius Watcher. So let's get down to business to understanding more about this hydrocephalus problem. So, Dr. Ronnie, hydrocephalus, in a layman's term, would mean too much water in the head. But what exactly, help us understand more about how this condition comes to play?
So as you correctly said, hydrocephalus really, in simple terms, is excessive water in the head. Now, the human brain does not feed from blood. It feeds through this fluid called CSF, cerebrospinal fluid.
Okay,
this
and
fluid,
that is the water which
yes,
you're talking about,
yes,
from the brain.
This fluid is produced in a special place and it bathes the brain, moves around the brain and the spinal cord. The functions that blood does in the rest of the body, taking nutrients to the parts of the body, removing waste product, that's what CSF does, or cerebrospinal fluid, for the brain. It bathes the brain, it feeds the brain, removes waste products from the brain, but most also important is it cushions the brain, such that if you have a sudden movement, maybe you're shaking your head or you're nodding your head, or you're on a board and there's a sudden stop in the board and your head moves forward, the brain doesn't get damaged by that sudden movement. So it plays a very important role.
So this liquid, this CSF you're talking about, is literally produced every day. It's in constant production by
yes,
the brain itself.
The brain produces about 500 mils of this fluid every day.
Every day. And so what happens in hydrocephalus? What goes wrong in that case? If we're saying it is due to excess water.
So hydrocephalus is a condition that develops when there is a problem, there is an imbalance between the rate of production and the rate of removal of CSF from the brain. Okay? When there is an imbalance.
So either it will be it's produced too much.
Either there is overproduction compared to the rate at which it is being removed, such that the excess just keeps collecting within the channels where it is produced, or the normal amounts are produced, but the rate of it being removed is reduced or inhibited for some reason, and so the fluid then accumulates.
Okay, so, so Dr. Noah,
yes,
we have understood that this hydrocephalus problem is due to either too much water being produced within the brain or slow removal. What exactly causes this too much production or delayed removal? Are there some conditions that will directly cause this hydrocephalus issue?
So hydrocephalus can be in two versions. You can either be born with it, that is what we usually call as congenital, or you can acquire it, meaning a child was born and is fine, and the mother has enjoyed the goodness of having a live baby. But along the way, the child's head starts to grow big. So that is what we call acquired. So among the congenital, it means something happened while the child was still in the womb and developed the disease. Like Dr. Mulonda said, there are chambers in our head where this water is kept. So these chambers are connected. We have 4 chambers in the head, connected from one to another. So sometimes in the process of formation of the brain, these chambers can lose the connection, such that the tubes that connect the chambers don't form.
So to understand these chambers, are they chambers of water?
Yes, they are. In
Where
medical language, you call them ventricles.
Ventricles.
So from one ventricle to another, there are connections from
Okay.
one ventricle to another.
So in other words, they're just chambers within the brain that
Yes.
hold this water,
Uh-huh.
and they're connected to each other
Yes.
via a series of channels.
Channels. So when these channels don't form, it means water can't move from one chamber to another. So whatever is being formed is accumulating in one chamber. So as it's accumulating, the head also will keep on increasing in size.
And that will cause the excess water.
Excess water.
Okay.
But also you can have brain malformations. That in the process of forming brain, there are syndromes or malformations that can present with hydrocephalus.
Okay.
For example, if you have is what we call a Dunn-Walker malformation. I don't know how to explain it better, but
they are
it will
basically
give you
just
malformations.
poor developments of the brain
Exactly.
linked to certain genetic factors.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Sometimes these mothers, while they are pregnant, they get infections that we call the torches in medical language. So torches involves toxoplasmosis, infection of rubella, infection of CMV, syphilis. So when the mother gets this infection can go and affect the baby. When the baby gets the infection inside the womb, that infection can go up to the brain and block the channels that carry the water.
Okay.
So in so doing, as the baby inside the womb is producing the water, it is not able to move. So the head will keep on growing while the child is still in the womb.
Okay. So in other words, saying if the mother acquires some infections, particular infections like syphilis,
Yes.
if it happens to reach the child when the child is still within the womb, it can affect the brain and cause blockage of these channels.
Yes.
And thus result in excess water
On the
forming
baby.
within the baby's head.
Yes.
Okay, and these are what they call congenital causes.
Yes.
So it means the child will be born, will they be born with like a big head? What will happen?
Yes, actually, as these mothers are going for antenatal, they have an abnormally big tummy, so they'll do a scan and they'll realize that this child has a big head.
Okay, so it can be
Yes.
picked during the antenatal
Yes.
when they're scanning. Okay.
Most of these babies who have the congenital hydrocephalus are born by cesarean section because the heads are already too big to be able to pass through the normal birth canal.
Okay.
The other causes are causes for what Dr. Matagala talks about as acquired hydrocephalus. Acquired means
okay.
the baby was born with a normal head. Everything was okay. But along the way, the head starts to grow big, or something happens to the flow of water that it stops flowing normally, and so the head starts to increase in size. Now, our viewers need to understand the increase in size, in as much as we talk about it as water not moving, we need to know that when the water is collecting in what we call the ventricles or the water channels, the pressure from as the channels grow big, they keep pressing on the brain. And because the baby has soft spots on its head, meaning that the bones are still liable they can be pushed out, the brain, because it is being pushed outwards, it transmits that pressure onto the bones, and so the head begins to expand. Okay? That's the process. Now, in acquired hydrocephalus, the baby is born with a normal head. Within the first month,
A normal size.
with a normal sized head.
Yes.
From our experience in cure, most of the babies we treat are actually as a result of acquired hydrocephalus. Okay.
And
So
what are some of these?
so the
causes
baby
of
is born
acquired?
with a normal sized head. They get an infection somewhere in the first 1 month of birth. Most of the mothers report in the first 1 to 2 weeks of birth. The baby gets a fever, they cry a lot, they are not feeding very well, and what the natural reaction for the mother is to seek help. They go to either a drug shop or to a clinic nearby. And in these clinics, they give them syrups. They give the baby syrups for fever, and the baby somehow gets better. And then 2 weeks to a month later, the head starts to increase in size. Okay. Now that is acquired because the baby was born with a normal sized head, and now the head is growing big after delivery. And
So the common cause you're saying
the
is an
common cause is
infection.
an early infection.
Okay.
Early infection of the neonate,
Wow.
of the baby.
So after the break, we shall come back to understand more about how we can recognize signs that someone might be suffering from this condition and how best we can help these people. Please don't go away and send your questions to the social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter, and we shall respond to them ably.
You are watching the DocTalk Show.